Hey fellow Terrarians, today we're going to talk about relics. And relics are amazing. They're unique drops that can only be obtained in Master Mode or Journey Mode using Master Mode difficulty. Alright, so relics are essentially golden trophies. They drop from every boss and some of the mini bosses during certain events. So let's explore them all. Now, they have a 100% drop chance pretty much, so that means you only need to defeat a particular boss or mini boss one time. That's all to obtain the relic. And again, it has to be in Master Mode. Even though it can seem challenging, let me assure you that it's quite doable. You don't have to be a pro to obtain all 27 relics. Okay, so, and we'll quickly explore them now. So, King Slime. I suggest fighting him manually without waiting for Slime Rain, because Slime Rain can make things complicated, especially if your character is not geared enough. And in Master Mode, King Slime can deal a lot of damage. Can one-shot a starter character pretty much. So you have to be very careful. Okay. Moving on to Eye of Cthulhu. Eye of Cthulhu is one of the easiest bosses in my opinion. And even this final dashing attack is not really dangerous as long as you have basic starter gear and some decent weapon. You should be good with any class pretty much. Alright, moving on to Brain of Cthulhu. Brain of Cthulhu can be challenging, especially at its last 5% life, due to decoys that are hard to spot and identify, so some classes may struggle. However, still, this boss is easily doable with the proper setup. And moving on to Eater of Worlds. Eater of Worlds it could be challenging, but it could also be very easy. A very easy boss if you set up your arena above its spawning, above its reach. So if it cannot reach you, then all you have to do is basically use ranged weapon of any sort. And keep in mind though that even though you have to choose your evil in most situations, it is possible in every world, it doesn't matter what world you choose, it's possible to fight both of these bosses. It just, you have to wait till hard mode, and there you can set up a custom biome for the opposite evil and then summon it. Okay, so now Skeletron. Skeletron is fairly easy using if you're geared. As long as you avoid getting stun locked, you should be good. Alright, moving on to Queen Bee. Queen Bee could be very challenging in Master Mode, especially fought outside its underground jungle biome. So I suggest doing it inside. You need to gear properly for this fight, and quite a bit of prep needed to feel comfortable. So the next, moving on to Wall of Flesh, the final boss of pre-hard mode. This fight can be very challenging in Master Mode due to the increased speed and damage of the boss, and can be deadly. Alright, one of the first bosses you can fight in Master Mode is Queen Slime. With the right setup, this fight can be effortless pretty much, and you can obtain your relic and blade stuff pretty much immediately. Alright guys, so the three mechanical bosses are very special, because usually we all aim to defeat them as soon as possible, as soon as we enter hard mode, right? So because they provide a lot of opportunities to gear up and a lot of options in terms of weapons. Now in hard mode things become a lot more challenging guys, a lot more difficult, and in Master Mode especially you will see that certain bosses can one-shot you, and even some normal regular mobs. Okay, so but moving on to the Destroyer. Again, there is a way to beat this boss very easily using the right approach. Pretty much every class can do it. Okay, so the next relic is the Twins. Twins in Master Mode, I think they're not as hard as many people think. It's just you have to be cautious, careful, and avoid getting stun locked. Okay, so and that's true for pretty much every boss in hard mode and in Master Mode in general. Okay, moving on to Skeletron Prime. So usually you would, first you will defeat the Destroyer, then the Twins, and then normally Skeletron Prime is the last. But that doesn't have to be the case. And again, this boss can be fairly easy with the right approach. Okay, so as long as you don't get stun locked. So you need mobility. And pretty much that applies to all of the bosses in hard mode. Mobility is key. Alright guys, so once you defeated all max, there you go, Plantera. So Plantera can be a rough customer, obviously, but her second phase can be cheesed a little by going into space and pretty much dragging her, so she cannot reach you. Okay, so the next boss is Duke Fishron. Duke Fishron can be actually fought right after entering hard mode, but that is extremely difficult. You need good gear, you need good mobility, you need good skill. Okay, so this boss is doable, but normally we put him after Plantera in terms of difficulty, maybe even post Golem, because obviously he's much more difficult than Golem, in my opinion. Alright, moving on to Empress of Light. So the relic you obtain from the Empress of Light, you don't have to fight the Empress during the day, of course. That is a lot more challenging than fighting her during the night. So all you have to do is defeat her during the night one time and you get your relic. In this case here we're doing it during daytime, just for fun, for the challenge of obtaining the Terra Prism. Alright, so moving on to Golem. And Golem is essentially one of the easier hard mode bosses. I would say he and Queen Slime are basically pretty much the same difficulty. Can be done effortlessly with the right gear, even without having OP weapons and stuff. So yeah, Golem Relic is easily obtainable. Alright guys, so now we've done Golem, Empress of Light, and we're looking at the lunar events. Lunar events would have two bosses, so the cultist, lunatic cultist, and he can be pretty dangerous, surprisingly, for this boss. Usually people just steamroll through this boss, but lately I find that he deals a lot more damage, especially in master mode. Alright, and obviously final boss in Terraria is the Moon Lord. And again guys, you only need to defeat all of these once. Okay, so in master mode to obtain all the relics. But that's not all in terms of the relics, right? So relics also drop from certain events. So let's move on to the Pirate Invasion. So Pirate Invasion is easy to manage, and so this relic drops from Flying Dutchmen, and those are those flying ships basically, and then can be easily defeated using the right approach, pretty much with any character. Alright guys, moving on to the next event, which is Martian Madness. Martian Madness is another event that can be quite challenging, and the mini boss here is Martian Saucer, and again you just need to kill one to obtain the relic. Alright, so now we move to three events that are, in my opinion, much more challenging. Okay, so one of them is Pumpkin Moon. Pumpkin Moon has two mini bosses. The Pumpkin, the harder one, that appears in later waves of the event, and the second one is the Morning Wood. Morning Wood is an easier boss in my opinion. It appears during the first few waves and for the first time. Obviously both of these bosses will appear in numbers in later waves. And guys, keep in mind that in order to beat this event you need to do a lot of preparations, and that includes maybe building arenas and traps and some using pretty much every buff in existence. This event is not the easiest, obviously. I would consider it more difficult than any of the invasions prior to that. Okay, so the next event is, in my opinion, is even more difficult, and that is Frost Moon. Frost Moon has three mini bosses, and those are the Everscream, Santa NK1, and Ice Queen. So all three are pretty dangerous, but I would say that the Everscream is an easier one, and same goes for, so the Santa NK1 and Ice Queen, in my opinion, are about the same in terms of how difficult they are, but it depends on the, obviously, on the build and class you play. But let's take a look. So Everscream and Santa NK1. Yeah, so these two bosses are, they can be pretty deadly for a character that is not well prepared. So in my opinion, this is probably one of the last events you want to fight. So being one of the most difficult events, I suggest taking time to prepare. Look into potentially adding traps to your arena, adding every possible buff, every possible potion, best gear you can achieve, and also think about strategy. We will do a guide on this event eventually, and I suggest, yeah, definitely take time to understand it. And the Ice Queen. She appears during the later waves of the event, and again, one of the most challenging mini bosses in Terraria, in my opinion. So preparation has to be made, and it requires endgame gear, it requires proper arenas and proper strategy. Alright guys, so the last event on our list is the Old One's Army. It provides 3 relics. Okay, so 3 mini bosses essentially drop relics during this event. However, we all know that there is tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3. So only tier 3, that is post golem tier 3 event, will drop the relics. Okay, so you can still obtain Dark Mage's trophy and Ogre's trophy in tier 1 and tier 2, but you will not be able to obtain the relics. So the relics, again, only obtainable post golem. Okay, tier 3. And that is when you have 7 waves, and that's when you have Betsy as your final boss. Okay, so Dark Mage. Dark Mage appears during the wave 4 and wave 6 of the event. And again, they're fairly easy to beat with the right gear, with the right setup. Okay, so they're similar, in my opinion. Ogres are only slightly more powerful. So Ogres do appear during waves 5 and 6, I believe. And so both of these, again, you need to defeat only one to obtain the relic, right? So, however, in order to beat the entire, to get the Betsy's relic, obviously you need to defeat the entire event, so you can't fail. Moving to Betsy, the final boss. So Betsy spawns, like I said, it's the final boss of the event, and she spawns during wave 7. Okay, so Betsy is special in a way that she actually is one of the bosses that does drop a bag, loot bag, like every other normal boss. So I would even consider Betsy a normal boss instead of a mini boss in this case. She can be really dangerous even when using endgame gear, so you need to be very careful. Alright guys, so we have covered all of the relics, all 27 relics in this video, and I hope you understand a little better about how to obtain them, and don't get discouraged if you feel that master mode is too challenging for you. It only feels this way, and you, again, like I keep saying this, and I believe that you don't need to be a pro to actually be able to beat the game on master mode. You just need to add a little bit of thinking to the mix, right? So plan your strategy and plan your progress carefully, and you don't have to suffer throughout the event. You can actually get rewarded and enjoy it. Thank you for watching guys, see you in the next video.